I'm sure everyone here watching this video has at one time or another trained on a .22 firearm, and I'm sure that many have grown up learning firearm safety and handling with their grandparents or grandparents' .22s. .22 firearms are an economic and practical choice when it comes to learning and training. .22 ammo is tremendously cheaper than centerfire ammunition, and .22s are considerably weaker than their centerfire counterparts, so risk of severe accidental collateral damage while training is considerably lower. I'd like to dive into the different ways you could utilize a .22 long rifle or rimfire for training. Firstly, cloning your centerfire rifle or pistol using a rimfire firearm. This method will cost more, but only if you do not train. It should pay for itself in ammo cost over the long term. You may not need the most Gucci of accessories or gear to clone your firearm, just get it close enough to replicate the function. Using this method, you have a dedicated training firearm, potentially even for those types of firearms that are not as common to have conversions. For instance, you can get a Smith & Wesson AR-22, a Glock 44, Beretta 92 FS-22, or FN 502, maybe even the Beretta ARX 100. There are a lot of choices. Having brought up conversions, let's talk about my second point. You could buy a rimfire conversion kit for many of the most common firearms available today. This may be an even cheaper alternative than buying a dedicated rimfire firearm. For instance, you can get a Kimber .22 conversion for your favorite 1911, or you can buy a .22 CMMG AR-15 rifle conversion kit instead of buying a $450 Smith & Wesson AR-22. Not to mention you'd have to replicate all the accessories that you have on your actual firearm for your training firearm. All of your accessories would remain on the exact same firearm, just the same way it was if it were just a centerfire firearm. You could even do the same process with handguns, although the availability of these conversion kits seem to be dwindling, like the Kimber .22 conversions, which have now been discontinued, in favor of just dedicated .22 firearm clones. That's the issue, though, the variance in and availability of conversion kits for dedicated firearms. Lastly, I'd like to cover something not in the realm of firearms. Since most types of firearms may not have conversions or clones available on the market, you may want to consider airsoft. I know, airsoft toys, right? Well, here's the thing. Even airsoft guns are able to replicate the handling and functions of firearms well. Some even as close as having real gas blowback recoil with functional bolts and slides. You may not get the same visceral feel, and yes, they might not be perfect replicants, nor do they have the range, velocity, or accuracy, but considering the cost of centerfire ammo versus airsoft BBs, you can't beat the price. For example, the SIG Sauer P320. SIG just released the SIG P322 and say it's a close enough replica of both the P320 and P365 for basic training. I have to disagree. The disassembly is completely different and the controls are slightly different. You know what perfectly replicates the P320? The airsoft version. It even has the modular FCU system. It's a nearly perfect replica besides the airsoft internals. I'll give you this though, some airsoft replicas are just electrically powered and don't replicate the function at all besides the controls. Just like my Aero Arms APC 9K by Ares, or Aero Arms. It has the same controls as the real deal, but nothing else is the same. Here's the kicker, I'm saving a lot of money not blasting 9mm all day. Ultimately, the best training you can get is using your real firearms, the firearms you intend to use should you need to. I would only endorse the training methods I mentioned earlier to get some reps in, to get familiar with your system. There are a lot of great options for training, but it's up to you to utilize them.